I began teaching and practicing yoga and meditation around early 1970s. I was an undergraduate, and when I first got introduced, like within the few months actually, I decided I wanted to teach. So what happened? And I'm really interested for you to consider for yourself what really has happened when we come to that realization we just want to share what we're loving. I still remember this spring evening when I was in college, where I was after a class where we had done yoga and meditated, and I was walking home to my apartment, and there was this wind that was really warm and the fragrance and so on. And it was a moment when my body and my mind were in the exact same place at the exact same time, and that hadn't happened. And it was in those moments that kind of collected sense that I just felt totally at home. And that happened over and over again in yoga and meditation. And there was this sense that I couldn't imagine anything more gratifying than going deeper into those practices and sharing them. Several decades ago, the Dalai Lama met with a group of Western teachers, and one of the questions was, what's the most important message we can bring to our students in the West? And his words were that they can trust the power of their heart and awareness to awaken through all circumstances. Much as Jack described, okay, we run into the whole sense of mortality around the corner, heart attack, whatever it is, or the divorce, or we run into something going on with our children that's really bringing incredible angst, that whatever the circumstances, this heart and awareness can awaken through it. And it's trusting that. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have that trust. It's trusting that we can actually help to nourish that trust in others. Because when we trust, we get to relax and rest in our lives. If I review my life, I can see that it was the times of most difficulty that actually nourished that trust the most. In my 20s, the big challenge was what I've come to term the trance of unworthiness, which was really a sense of I'm not okay. And really facing the angst of self-judgment and self-aversion, and learning how the practices could make an amazing difference in that realm. So a cornerstone of our training is how to really guide people in finding that compassion for themselves, because that's how the change happens. Many are familiar with the third Zen patriarch, who said that described freedom as really being without anxiety about imperfection. I mean, imagine if you could enter this training and be without anxiety about imperfection. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's one of my prayers, and I have to say this is for all of us, that in some way that rigid superego that is constantly evaluating, am I doing it? Am I good enough? Am I doing this right? Am I the one person here that really doesn't belong? You know, that kind of thing, that we can let it go. It's one of my favorite little stories is of children in a cafeteria, a Catholic school cafeteria, and they're in line, and they first pass this pile of apples, and there's a big sign saying, take only one. God is watching, okay? Then at the end of the line, there's a pile of cookies, and it says, the note was written by a child. It says, take all you want. God's watching the apples. So one of the great, areas that is difficult and sticky that we start navigating through with these practices, and then being able to train others to really deepen that self-kindness and that becoming aware of the trance of unworthiness. When we start getting the knack of it, it gives us a sense of aliveness and trust that's actually contagious. It helps other people trust that they too can actually love themselves. For me, another round or another season of running into real challenge was when in my 40s I ran into a very serious illness that is a genetic disorder that I still am dealing with, but I'm actually not as sick as I was. But for 8 years, I was in a kind of continual downward spiral, and I didn't know how down it would go. And I was losing mobility and unable to really do a lot of what I loved. And again, it was these practices that we're all engaging with and learning how to share with others that showed me the refuge, a way to come into presence, to love the life just that's right here as it is, no matter what. And that trust, as it got deeper, just made me feel more in love with teaching.